part of your day as a stay-at-home mom that is consistently difficult every single day? I know I have had many of these over the years. One of them has been the witching hour, where you just expect a kid to be upset and sad while you're making dinner for the last hour of the day. And you pretty much just plan on it being miserable for an hour of your day. Another example of something like this could be something as simple as getting into the car. Maybe you know your day is going fine, but as soon as you start trying to get the kids loaded up in the car, there's going to be crying and screaming, and there's going to be the same types of things that happen every single time. Maybe it's something where you're at church and you feel like you are a vending machine because this child wants this book, this child wants that book. You're trying to keep them quiet, and they are always dissatisfied with the book they got. They always had the wrong snack, and there's just a lot of drama. And to some extent, as moms, there are things that will always be difficult because as long as we live in this world, we are Christians and we know that the world is sinful. We ourselves are sinful. Our children are sinful. The world is fallen, so things won't be perfect. At the same time, we are also managers of our homes, whether or not we like it. We are in charge at home. We are setting the tone of our home, and there are practical things we could do to problem solve. So one of my favorite things to do as a former lab manager and food service manager, and as someone who just generally loves to solve problems, is to view being a stay-at-home mom as a job, and then to take the problems that we normally just accept as mothers and try to problem solve them. This can make a huge difference. So one of my favorite ways to do this is an acronym called STOP, and it stands for sit, think, observe, and plan. And these are all principles that I learned that I found very helpful to apply to pain points at home. So one of the first things you do if you are finding that a particular part of the day is difficult again and again is you do something that feels like the last thing you want to do. You sit. And one of the reasons this is so important is for moms and managers, it's really easy to want to try to come up with quick fixes all the time for the problems in our life. So I know I would get in trouble all the time as a manager for not taking the big picture into account, but to just trying to quickly problem solve in the moment, to try to make something work for the moment. And the problem is, the more you do that, the more you're in charge of. You literally cannot solve all the problems. You actually have to have other people on your team because you're leading other people. And you actually have to see where the system breakdown is taking place. So when you sit, you're forcing yourself to then sit, and then the second letter is think, to think about what is happening. And so often as moms, we are just going as fast as we can, and we don't spend time thinking about the problems. We might spend time venting. I do that sometimes, right? To my husband or to a friend. You might tell them about, every time I get into the car, we have this problem. It's just like the rigmarole every single day. This always happens, right? And so often we aren't actually doing this in a productive way. We're just doing this in a way to try to gain rapport with someone. Say, oh yes, we're all moms. We all understand how hard it is. Boo-hoo, our life is sad. And I understand this. I am a woman. I understand that sometimes you need a good cry. You need someone to be a listening ear. But at some point for me, I actually want to fix the problem. Like, I don't want this time of day to be hard every single day. And sometimes it's hard because we need to change something structurally, not just because of the fall, but because there are practical things we could do to make it better. So that's why thinking can be really helpful. Another thing that I really recommend is the O, which is observe. So when you are observing something, you are looking and you're asking yourself questions. You're asking yourself things like, what are things in this situation that I can control? What are things in this situation that I cannot control? Are there any things we could do to avoid this situation altogether? Are there any habits we can establish to improve the flow of this process that happens every single day? So I'll give you a few examples of this. One of the things that I realized in our home was happening every single day was the witching hour. It was pretty much textbook. I would get my toddler up. He would be crying and want to be snuggled constantly. My baby would be in the bouncy seat. She would also be wanting to be snuggled constantly. I would be making dinner, and my dinner would need to be stirred. And I knew at any moment I would make someone unhappy. Either I would set the toddler down, he would cry, pick the baby up, and she would be happy. I'd set the baby down, pick up the toddler, and the baby would cry, but the toddler would be happy. Or I would hold both of them, and I would burn dinner, and then none of us would be happy. Has anybody been there? And you're just thinking to yourself, I cannot win. And this is one of the reasons being a mom is so hard. is because you have all of these demands on you and there's a noise level and it just impacts the way you could think about the situation. So I recommend observing, trying to get away from the situation for a little bit and just thinking. So with the witching hour example, one of the things that I realized is the stress of the moment is not the baby crying, it's not the toddler crying, it's not even making dinner. It's trying to deal with all three of those things at the same time. I realized, okay, I cannot control if they're all up at the same time necessarily, but I can start by not planning to make dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I've actually started a system where I make meals ahead and I thaw them, I freeze them, and then I thaw them the day of, and I put them in a crock pot and let them heat up at that crazy dinner hour. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, I thought through the situation and I realized, okay, my children wake up at fairly predictable times. However, I can also choose to wake up a child earlier if I am so inclined and give that child some undivided attention to make the situation easier. Again, not perfect. It will never be perfect this side of glory, but easier. So one of the other things I've started doing is waking up my toddler before my baby. The toddler sits on my lap. He has a snack. We read a book. He gets that one-on-one attention and physical contact that he so desperately wants right after he wakes up from his nap. My baby is still asleep. My dinner is in the crock pot. My toddler is getting the attention he needs. And then usually after 10 or 15 minutes, he's happy to go play by himself. But he really just wants that snuggle right when he wakes up. Or for whatever reason, it's very hard for him to adjust to the rest of the day. It's like this transition period where he goes from his bed to mom to playing. And if he doesn't have the mom part, it can be stressful for quite a long period of time. So again, when you stop, you think and observe, plan, you don't solve all the problems. There are still grumpy toddlers, there are still crying babies. It doesn't fix everything, but it can fix some things. And sometimes just having a little bit and better part of a challenging day can make a really, really big difference in your attitude in the evening when you're having family time together, and it can really, really improve things. Another example of this would be when I was in church with my kids. And pretty much since my now 4-year-old was 6 months old, in church, I had this routine of trying to entertain the kids, and this would look like giving them a snack and a book and keeping them engaged. Well, we just kept that routine going. We didn't evaluate it at all. We didn't think about it. It didn't occur to us that our children were changing, right? So by now we had 3 kids, 4, 2, and then a 6-month-old. And I was doing the same thing. So I'm handing multiple kids books, multiple kids snacks. The kids are crying because they're not getting the book they wanted. They're not getting the snack they wanted. And I'm really stressed, genuinely. Like, I'm angry. Like, you should be thankful for this book. You know, look at me. I'm serving you left and right. Why are you thankful for me? And my husband's helping as well. But there's just a lot of those dynamics happening in church. Constant friction. Okay, we're handing this book. They don't want this book. We can make it an obedience thing, but we don't really want to do that because we're trying to all sit through the service, right? So you're trying to like pacify all of these children. Well, it occurred to me, I am a human vending machine. I don't want to be a human vending machine. How did I get to the point of being a human vending machine? And it really was because I hadn't thought about it. We just kept doing the same thing we'd always been doing. And this happens all the time in food service settings. People do the same thing again and again and again and again and again, not because it's efficient, not because it's serving people well, not because it's making them money, but because they've done it for a long, long, long period of time. It's kind of like that joke where it's like the granddaughter and she cuts off part of the roast because her mom cut off part of the roast, because her grandma cut off part of the roast, and then the granddaughter asked the grandma, why did you do that? And she was like, oh, I didn't have a pan big enough. And they were like, oh, I thought there was some reason to this, right? Well, that's where I was with the whole human vending machine situation, right? So I realized, okay, I need to stop, I need to think, I need to observe, and then I need to plan. And I realized so much of the pain from this is the child wants to choose what book they want to look at, and I am the one choosing for them, and I can't give them so-and-so's book because so-and-so has that book. So what we did is we gave them all a backpack. So now they all bring their own little backpack to church. I don't choose what book they look at. I don't care what book they look at. They look at whatever book they would like to look at first and second and third. And they're allowed to have their snack during the sermon. And that's pretty much the only rule. They have to sit in their chair, be quiet. They can play with any of the things in their backpack. And then when they're done, they pack it up. And I tell you what, that has reduced so much stress. But it was just one of those things we just kept doing and doing and doing because I hadn't sat, thought, observed, and planned, right? Another example of this is we would have all of this stress. At the grocery store, I would be holding on to kids. They'd be yanking on my hands. They'd say, hold my hand. They'd pull on my hand. They'd let go, whatever. Then I'm like, do we take them back to the car to deal with this? This is not fun. So what we've started doing at home is just practicing. So this is something we would drill with our kids daily for a long time. I'd say, okay, hold hands. So we would just practice holding hands, going around the living room. And then when I was about to have my third baby, we practiced this again. Okay, Elliot and Jack, you hold hands and I'm going to pretend to hold the baby. And I didn't even have the baby yet, but we just walk around holding hands. Little things like this where the kids develop grooves in their minds of what to expect to do positively instead of the negative association of, whenever we're in the grocery store, I tug on mommy's hand and sit down, right? Just developing these patterns of this is what we do every time has made a huge difference going out in public. It's not always perfect. By no means is it always perfect. If you have 3 small children, you understand life is not always perfect. But thinking through things instead of just assuming it will be this way for the next 10 years has added so much refreshment and joy to my life. And I really think that if you implement these things, it could do that in your life as well. So if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead, like it, leave a comment if you have a system that you are loving right now as a stay-at-home mom. I would love to know. I'm always looking for new ideas to implement in our home. And go ahead and share it with a friend if it was helpful to you. And thank you so much again for joining us for another episode of Sugar and Spice Mom Life.